Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name's Nichelle. Today I'm going to be doing a video on this list that Goodreads just released of the top 100 romances of the past 3 years. I am a huge romance reader. That is by far and away the genre I read the most in. So I was really excited to kind of take a look at this list, especially because I have really been reading a lot of romance over the past few years. So I was really excited to kind of see like where I lined up in terms of like what I had read and what I hadn't read. So first thing, Goodreads divided this list into two sections. We had the first section, which were contemporary romances, and then historical romances. I am only going to be talking about the contemporary romances because I haven't read a single one of the historical romances. I want to get into historical romances. I feel like I would really enjoy them, but I haven't read any yet. So maybe historical romance video coming soon. But I make no promises. Out of the contemporary romances, there were 76 total on the list. I've read 40, which is just over half. And I'm really excited to read most of the ones I haven't read. A lot of these are on my TBR. I just haven't had a chance to get to them. There are a couple that I know I don't want to read because I've read from that author and really didn't enjoy. That I read the romances and just really didn't enjoy the style of romance. I would love to do a video going through and maybe reading some of the ones I haven't read. But for now, this is where we're at. These are the ones I have read and I haven't read. So what I decided to do, what I thought might be interesting, is for me to go through and rank out of the 40 books I've read. I'm going to go through and rank them from worst to best, in my opinion, of romances. And then I'll be giving you a super short one-sentence summary of the book. Like I said, this is entirely subjective. This is my perspective when it comes to these books, but I definitely think it really varies based on what you're looking for in a romance, and I think everyone has really unique experiences with romance, more so than any other genre. So these first couple romances are romances that were just not for me. I'm gonna go through them and like I said, I'm just gonna give one sentence summary, so I probably won't go into why they didn't work for me for all of them. Maybe I will for a couple, but let's get into it. So in 40th place, in last place for me, was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. The brother's best friend is a jerk, but also will save you from kidnappers in a pinch. Then we have Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. What if the only way to escape from an engagement to a guy who will probably kill you was to have sex on stage? Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, which I pretty firmly believe is not a romance. Kendra gets out of prison and wants to see her daughter, but is distracted by the town hottie. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. The quirkiest girl in Knockoff Disneyland reminds her boss what the true meaning of Dreamland magic is. The Roommate by Rosie Dannon. Clara thinks she's becoming roommates with her longtime crush, but instead ends up being roommates with a porn star. The next group of books are romances that I read, but didn't have a super memorable experience of. They're romances that I probably couldn't tell you the main character's name if pressed, but also I didn't have a negative time. Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. Piper's younger sister Hannah comes back to the small fishing town of Westport to do music things and falls for Fox, who can't seem to shake his reputation as the town womanizer. A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair. Hades and Persephone are in love, but trouble is afoot. I'm fascinated only the second and third books. I wonder if the first book in the series came out before this list started, but I'm fascinated that only the second and third books came out. I can it's hard for me to distinguish. I read them all in a row, so it's hard for me to distinguish what came where. But this series is one of my guilty pleasure series. But according to my ratings, looking back, I think this is my least favorite in the series so far. The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. What if Chip and JoJo actually hated each other and then their assistants fell in love? You Had Me at Ola by Alexis Daria. When two telenovela actors are given starring roles in a mainstream American television show, they begin to fall in love, but they're both hiding secrets. The Roughest Draft by Emily Wimberly and Austin Sigmund Bruca. Two co-writers are forced to work together again and spend 2 months sharing a house after a massive falling out tore them apart after their last book. Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Persephone found her true love at the lake decades ago, but ruined everything by being literally the worst. But now, a decade later, she returns to the lake and to the boy she used to love. King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. Spicy vampires. I'm actually currently rereading this book because the second book recently came out, or I found out the second book recently came out. I actually don't know how recently it came out. And I remember breezing through this one and being incredibly underwhelmed by the plot, but also truly I enjoy a vampire novel. So obviously we'll be reading the sequel. Okay, the next chunk are ones that are really good, that I really enjoyed. Not all-time favorites, but goodies. In Holidaze by Christina Lauren, a Christmas Groundhog's Day situation in which a girl is torn between two brothers and keeps reliving the same day. over and over again. A very festive Christmas day, until she gets it right. A Touch of Malice by Scarlett St. Clair. More Hades and Persephone shenanigans, but really, really fucking sad. This book, I remember something like pretty like traumatic happens and I was so torn up. I was devastated and I think I was more sad about it than Persephone. Funny you should ask by Liz Sussman. It is actually just the embodiment of this interview with Andrew Garfield and the chicken shop lady. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. It is like one of the best videos to grace the internet over the past year. So far in 2023, where are we? This is the best video. It's like a famous guy falls in love with an interviewer. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. When you fake date your professor, you have no choice but to sit on his lap during lectures and make out with him at the department picnic. Twisted Games by Anna Huang. A princess falls in love with her bodyguard. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. A hockey player falls for an ice skater and there's a lot of drama, but they're also excellent communicators who clearly have spent a lot of time in therapy, which we love. One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. The Bachelorette has their first plus-size bachelorette. The Ex Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. 2 radio hosts pretend to be exes for a show, but they fall in love in real life. Shipped by Angie Hockman. 2 workplace enemies are forced to go on a cruise together in order to compete for the same job. The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. When you have a wedding in Spain where your ex-boyfriend is a groomsman, sometimes you have no choice but to bring your coworker who you absolutely despise. Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. When your billionaire boss needs a wife in order to fulfill the terms of his grandfather's will, sometimes you have to step up to the plate, even when he's a total asshole. Act Your Age, Eva Brown by Talia Hibbert. The youngest Brown sister can't hold down a job, so when she stumbles into an interview for a chef position at a B&B, obviously she has to take it, even though her and the very type A boss completely butt heads. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Love in a Subway, brought to you by a weird metaphysical time loop situation. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. While fleeing her wedding, Naomi gets a call from her evil twin sister and goes to the small town where she's suddenly the guardian for her niece and living with this grumpy rich guy who owns half the town. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Socialite Piper is exiled to a small Washington fishing town and forced to renovate her dead dad's bar while falling for a local fisherman. Okay, these last 13 are like my top tier, some of my like all-time favorite romances. The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, which I would be like reluctant to like fully get on board with saying it's a romance. I'm definitely someone who like likes a lot of external drama happening around the romance, but The Heart Principle like really focuses on the main character's growth outside of a romance. The romance, it feels very much like a subplot, not the main plot. But I loved it. A world-renowned concert violinist finds love on a dating app while dealing with her own crippling anxiety and becoming her father's caretaker. The Takeover by T.L. Swan. A single mom of 3 boys starts to fall for a billionaire trying to buy her company out from under her, while he learns what it means to have a family. It's a spicy version of a Disney Channel original movie. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Aweke Ameze. Still grieving the loss of her first husband, Faye goes on a trip to a tropical island with her current situationship and ends up falling for his very rich celebrity chef dad. All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. A recently divorced songwriter flees to the Colorado mountains where her mother disappeared on a hike decades prior and ends up living with a very grumpy park ranger. The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. This book I would firmly, the other ones, like maybe you could push it. I would firmly say this is not a romance. I was shocked to see this on the romance list. This book is maybe the saddest book I've ever read in my entire life. And I have read A Little Life. I cried. You know how like when people say books are sad, there's like a couple spots where you cry throughout the book. I cried on almost every single page of this book. I just like sobbed for the 4 hours it took me to read it. Like cover to cover. Cover to cover. It is so incredibly sad. Do not go into this book thinking it's romance. This book almost killed me. I was like swollen, headache the next morning on the nights that I read this book. The saddest book I have ever read. Cried on every single page. Like tears streaming down my cheeks for the entire 4 hours it took me to read this. Her fiance dies in a car accident on the way to her birthday dinner on like page 10. But if she takes a sleeping pill, she wakes up in a world where he's still alive. This book is devastating. Cannot emphasize that enough. Okay, back to the actual romances. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. A new dating app uses genetics to match people together. And when the CEO of the company matches with a single mom, they have to date as a PR thing for the company. Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. A neuroscientist is forced to work with her nemesis from grad school on a NASA helmet project. And there's an invisible cat. Take a Hit, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. PhD student Danny Brown fake dates the rugby-playing, emotionally educated, romance-reading security guard after he carries her from the building during a fire drill. 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Years earlier, two teens fell in love after spending 7 days together. They were ripped apart, but now years later, they are both authors, writing each other into their books and meeting again. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Heart of Dixie, but better. The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Alex Nielsen and Poppy go on vacation in Palm Springs as a last chance effort to revitalize a friendship that has started to resolve. Also, Alex Nielsen is like top tier, the best. The best. He's the best. We love him. We're going to talk about my favorite Emily Henry in just a moment here. But Alex Nielsen is the best Emily Henry man. Like, we'll spoil. Beetroot is my favorite Emily Henry novel. I don't know if it'll ever be topped. That novel is like brilliance. But Alex Nielsen is like the top tier if I had to rank book boys. He's the number one. Like, he's so far above everyone else that, like, you know, like, they don't even need to bother showing up to the competition. I love Alex Nielsen. In second place, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Nora works through her eldest sister trauma in a small town and then returns home to her Peloton in New York City. Beach read by Emily Henry. Why do you think, January? So there's my ranking of the 40 books that I've read off of the Goodreads top 100 romances. I also very quickly wanted to list some of my honorable mentions. If I was making this list, what else would have been on it? I did follow the same rules that I like assumed Goodreads did, so I didn't include anything where like fantasy could be considered the primary genre. I know they said they included like some fantasy romances, but I didn't see like any of like the fantasy romances that I would consider like true fantasy romances in my opinion. There were like some romances with like some fantastical elements. Like there was no, like Sarah J Maas didn't appear anywhere on this list, which like I would have included her probably if I was really including fantasy romances. Same thing with like From Blood and Ash and I don't know, some of those other books that like take place in fantasy worlds. So I didn't go in and include any of those, and I also made sure they were published in 2020 through 2023, so through today. So those were like kind of the rules I used to approach my honorable mentions, my 8 books that I would have added if I was the boss of this list. First up, I would have put Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. I actually read this one really recently. It was in my last month's reading wrap up. It is about this girl who has to fake date her best friend, and she owns a Christmas tree farm. It is really good. It is like one of the best examples of friends to lovers that I've seen since The People We Meet on Vacation, honestly. Really delightful. A gorgeous time. Would definitely add it to my list. Then this one is like a personal favorite. Is it an all-time best book? No, maybe not, but I love it. I've recommended it before. It is my favorite mafia romance, and that is Carnal Urges by G.T. Jesserden. This is the second book in the Queens and Monsters series. It is my favorite of the books. But I really enjoy all of them. This is like my favorite. They're like wildly ridiculous mafia romances, but I love them. It's a 4-book series. I've read all the books. This one is my favorite, but like, what a delightful time I had. What a delightful time I have, and I would add it to my list. Next, another Ali Hazelwood. I know we didn't have a shortage of her, but I would include her STEMness novellas. They've actually been pulled together in a collection called Loathe to Love You. I saw it at Target the other day, even though like I think the Goodreads said it wasn't out yet, but like I've seen it in the world. And it's just like a collection of these 3 novellas that follow these like 3 friends, and then they like all get tall grumpy boyfriends, and it's lovely. I enjoyed all of them. Like a great time, and I think it should be added to the collection. Then this next one I feel like strongly about, and I think maybe the only reason it's not on this list is because it is like not purely a romance. Like it's more of a drama, but drama is not really a category we have in books. Like that's not really a genre you can place books in. But it is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. You know I love this book. You know I love this book, and it deserves to be on this list. It is so good. It follows this group of London high society girls. We're mostly following BJ and Magnolia, who were like childhood loves but like broke up a couple years back, and they're like clearly gonna end up together. They're like so in love with each other, but like they can't seem to make it work. It's such a delight. It's the first book in like an ongoing series. I think the series is gonna have like 7 books total, but I love them. I love them. Then we have another T.L. Swan. I know The Takeover was on the list, but I like the Miles High Brothers series. It's one of my favorite Kindle Unlimited series, but in my favorite book in that series is The Casanova, which follows this guy who like is like a notorious Casanova. He's like a player, but he like is a romantic at heart, and he feels like he will know when he's found like the one because he'll get some sort of sign. And then he starts like, I think it starts as like a workplace enemies sort of relationship with like his assistant, and then there's like an undercurrent of like art thievery happening underneath. It is like silly and ridiculous, but I literally loved it so much. It's so good. And then this one I was probably the most surprised not to see on this list because I've like seen it so many places, and there were so many of these books that I had seen less than this one. But it's Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen, which follows, I read this one also recently. I think it was in my last wrap up and in my favorite romances, or reading booktubers favorite romances video. But it follows this audiobook narrator as she like gets kind of like in this love triangle. The other two men don't know they're in a love triangle, but she has this like fling in Vegas, but she's also kind of falling for this other male audiobook narrator, and it's like really cute and fun and like, I don't know, like a cute little ode to the romance genre. Surprised not to see it. This one is another sequel, but it's so good, and it's The Air Affair by Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. It is the second book in, I think it's a duology. I think it's only these two books. It's essentially like Princess Kate Middleton and like Prince William fan fiction, although this book follows their storyline a little less closely. But the girl is an American who like fell for the prince while she was in a study abroad trip in Oxford. But this book is following them kind of years later. They're already married. They get married in the first book. This is following them kind of going through the first like couple years of their marriage, I believe. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just like the first year. But they're so good. I really, really love them. If you haven't read these and you like anything about the royal family, read these. And then the last one is another book that I really enjoyed and read recently, and it was 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. This was like such a fun premise. It was like a premise I hadn't read before. It was like fake dating, but only one of the persons knows it's fake. It was like bet dating, you know, like After. Sort of like that, kind of. Like that's almost the vibe, but it was a little less malicious towards the person she was dating than After. Sometimes I think about After and I feel like it was like a fever dream. Anyway, she gets broken up with by this terrible guy. And so she decides to get revenge on him by dating his boss. And then it's also like slightly Christmassy because like the like culmination of this revenge plot is at like the holiday party. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It sounds like really ridiculous and the cover is like outlandish, but like what a good time. A good time was had by all. Thank you so much for watching. That is all I have for you. Like I said, hopefully this will spawn a couple more videos. I'm hoping. Right now I'm working through those booktuber favorites. That's like the current TBR goal. I'm still working through and reading those as we go. But after we get through those, I think we're going to circle back to this list and hopefully do at least one video in which I read some of those historical romances, but maybe 2 videos in which I also read some of the 40 books or the 36 books that I haven't read yet, because I would love to read all of them. If I could read all of the romances in the world, I would. I love them so much. So subscribe if you were interested in either of those videos, or you just like me. You just want to hear me talk more. I will. I'll do it. I'll talk more just for you. If you are a romance reader, I would urge you to go look at the list and tell me what your number is. How many of the books have you read off of the list of 100? I'm at a 40, which is not a passing grade. I would really like to get it above half. You know, like that seems like a better place as someone who like really adores romance. I will talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye.